Jimmy, you would like to comment also and give an update on the Wikipedia situation.
Great. I guess, very good. I guess my first question for you, though, before I have anything to say, is how old are you?
Well, 27.
27. I remember when I was 27, I wasn't giving anybody $1 million. Amazing. So, well, obviously, we've had a very interesting week in the past week with the global Wikipedia blackout, which ended up being a massive success. Thank you. It's actually interesting when we think about your axis there of where we sit in the whole internet ecosphere. It's really a very special place, I think, and it's one of the things that has allowed our community to take this kind of action. One of the things about Wikipedia and the Wikipedia community is that we do view our mission a bit more broadly than just Wikipedia itself. We're part of the culture, and we also want to defend the parts of the culture that enabled and empowered Wikipedia and all of the other great sources from the internet to actually happen. We think that's very important. But also because we are a nonprofit, our decision-making to take an action like this is very, very different from any other organization. This decision was not taken in a top-down way. I can only take credit for having the idea and proposing it to the community, after which an enormous conversation happened that culminated in a vote of the community that was overwhelmingly in favor of taking this action. But because we are in this space where we exist from donations, we didn't have to have that agonizing decision that you might have to have about what is this going, are we going to give up all our revenue for one day? If you are a company like Google, who obviously does also very deeply care about openness on the internet and so forth, you still have shareholders, you still have a very large infrastructure to pay for, and for Google to go black for a day would cost them an enormous amount of money. One reporter asked me, well, gee, how much revenue do you think you'll lose because of this day? And I just, the question had never even occurred to me to think about, that we just don't think in those terms. And B, if I do stop to think about it, I think the net impact on our revenue, of course, would be positive, because one of the reasons people donate to Wikipedia is because we are this principled organization that stands for openness and knowledge and so forth, and this was a meaningful thing to have done. So I think being in this spot, it gives us the ability to do things like that, but also I think a responsibility to be there. For a lot of people, they thought, wow, this is amazing. Wikipedia has never been at all political before, but I think they didn't notice that we've always been a little bit political in some subtle ways. So for example, back in the day when Google decided to compromise in China, that was when it really became obvious to me that we could not. And so we never compromise with censorship in China. We've always spoken out against it. We speak out against censorship anywhere in the world. And if it starts to come home in the US and somebody wants to set up a new law that's going to filter DNS, we're going to say, no, that's not something that's okay with us. So it is a wonderful thing to be in this space where we are. So it's great.
I think any web project is on the net is grateful for Wikipedia to take a stand, in saying this. But from the part of our company, I must admit that United States laws don't affect us, and the other thing, we don't really have any problems with the copyright in Russian legal system. So, but obviously it would affect us in some future if this law was taken. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting here is I think there's two ways that law in the U.S. can affect people in other places. One way is this law was specifically aimed at foreign, from the U.S. perspective, websites. And in fact, I had several people in the UK say, well, why should we care about this? And I said, well, for example, the UK startup industry should care about this almost more than anybody else because they're doing startups in English that instead of being subject to the DMCA takedown and notice provisions, you could be subject to these provisions instead, which get your website completely shut down very quickly, or at least you lose financial access to the US market very quickly. It can be very dangerous for people overseas. In fact, I felt like there was a little bit of short-sighted misunderstanding. If you think about it, if you think of a company like Google, if Google were a strictly mercenary company, they might say, this is a great idea because it's going to cut out loads of competition all around the world. It's a great way for Facebook to go after VKontakte, for example. So why isn't Facebook in favor of it? I think it's because these companies realize the second thing, which is U.S. law will inspire changes to law elsewhere. And if we have poorly designed laws that don't actually solve the problems they're meant to solve, but put up all of these regulatory barriers, it's bad for the entire industry, it's bad for the general public, and so forth. So, we can't think of the internet as being, everything is global now. What happens in one country affects all the countries, particularly with respect to internet regulation.
Absolutely.
So, it's great. So, what should we do next? It's really interesting because when I'm looking around, people are saying, well, would you ever do this again? And I say, well, I hope not. I don't think so. But then you begin to realize some of the other laws that are out there. Right now, one of the things that a lot of people are raising concerns about is ACTA, which is you should go and read about it. It's one of these typical treaty kinds of things. It's been negotiated under lots of secrecy. It's now being signed by different countries. The European Parliament has an opportunity to say no to it, and I hope that they will. Different individual countries have the opportunity to say no along the way. I have a feeling it's been signed by the U.S., but that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot because it hasn't been approved by the Congress. So it's been signed and it is a certain negotiating phase. But if legislation is needed to implement it in the U.S., they're going to have to go to the U.S. Congress, and I have a feeling that after the beating we gave them last week, they're not going to be interested in doing anything for a year or so. But that's just one example. Another example, there's a law that's being proposed. It's made it through committee, and it will come to the House floor. And of course, this is a law about child predators and about child pornography. So this is a very serious issue. Unfortunately, it's such a serious and real issue that people do feel very strongly about, and for good reasons, that oftentimes logic goes out the window. And so this law was proposing massive record-keeping requirements for US ISPs. They want to track everything. And as somebody pointed out, if you think, well, okay, yeah, it's good, why don't we keep more records? Remember that we live in an era of the hacking group Anonymous and WikiLeaks. And how many of you would like to have your browsing records stolen from your ISP and posted on the internet? That could be very painful to people and could easily happen. And so mandating that we keep more and more records on people is probably a very bad idea, even if we think, gee, this problem of abuse of children is one that deserves serious attention. So I think we're going to have to be very, very vigilant going forward. And one of the things that I hope to see is now, at least I hope, there's a window of opportunity here for Hollywood to come to the table and talk to Silicon Valley with a little bit more humility, to know that actually we appreciate that, when we see Rupert Murdoch on Twitter claiming that Google is a pirate and leading the pirate movement, it's nonsense. It's completely insane. And when you've got people on the other side thinking they can get away with statements like that, we're not close to actually having a discussion about the real issues. Now there may be an opportunity to say, look, this is not our movement. We have no reason to defend piracy at all. I have no interest in piracy. I have to confess, actually, how ignorant I am about some of these things. I had never in my life even heard of Mega Upload even once. I had no idea. Apparently, it's very popular. But now we have this opportunity to say, look, I think people say, look, we do want to deal, if there are serious criminal organizations engaging in large-scale piracy, and it's an actual serious problem, then let's start to deal with that. But let's deal with that in ways that don't involve censoring the internet, that don't involve these sort of ridiculous and technologically incompetent ideas. Let's actually have a serious conversation about what to do about some of these problems. And I think we have that opportunity now, and we should take it.
Good.